democracy.
Okay. Sree Iyer, at the end of the day, what needs to be rather talked about at the UNHRC is Pakistan's abysmal record on human rights. The way Pakistan treats their minorities, as we've seen recently. All this perhaps should be raised by India there, rather than Pakistan's war cry on India's, human rights violations, despite no proof.
Every day, 3 teenage girls are getting raped, in whether it is in interior Sindh or in interior Punjab, in rural, and these are all Hindus. And they are doing it in a systematic manner, and somehow no one wants to pay attention to this. Why is India not highlighting this in all these forums such as the UNHRC? This is also a human rights issue. Everybody has a right to live. There are 7 million or 70 lakh Hindus still trapped in Pakistan who would like to come to India, but then India needs to be able to house all of them, give them rehabilitation and so on. So it's not going to be easy. Instead, is it not the right of Pakistan to make sure that everybody in their country is treated equally? This has now gotten to a point where, we have submitted a lot of data to not just the UNHRC, but also to the USCRF. And somehow, all these organizations turn a blind eye. Come on now, call it equal, call it same on both sides. And I just can't for the life of me understand why this is happening. And I'm not keeping quiet about this. We have been talking to and writing to US congressmen and senators, pointing out all these things to them and saying that, look, the USCIRF, for example, is a taxpayer funded body, and these guys are slanting data. We would like them to completely be shut down. If you are going to just keep on talking about, the unevenness and the injustice done to just Muslims, and that too take some cherry-picked data and make a big molehill mountain out of it. Now, that is not what the USCRF is meant for. And we've been writing to congressmen and senators saying, shut this thing down. You cannot have something which is just, blind to a lot of things that are happening and just keeps highlighting one little thing. And as far as India is concerned, in this specific Article 370 banning process is concerned, this is an internal matter. I don't understand why UNHRC even has to sit on it. Did India go and do something in some other country? What is the reason for, what is the locus standi for UNHRC in this case? Just because somebody just comes and rakes it, they have to take it up? They should not even be allowing this to be coming up for discussion. It's a waste of time, and it's also again a waste of US taxpayer money, because remember, the United Nations is funded in large part by the taxpayers of United States. As a taxpayer of United States, I am aghast that this is being put to wrong uses. So we are making a lot of noise. You might not see it here, but believe me when I say this thing, it is doing the rounds in social media in the United States. And we are saying that unless you call it fair on all the different violations, this thing is a sham and you should not even be talking about it.
Okay.
So what stops us writing a letter to UNHRC?
Sree Iyer also wanting to respond.
So therefore, we have to be proactive.
Couple of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, couple of things. Who owns Washington Post? Jeff Bezos. What else does he own? Amazon. All of India can say, look, we are not going to buy from Amazon unless Washington Post starts calling it fairly on both sides. They cannot outrage on one side alone. This is something that a mass movement can make, and it will move the needle, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to touch upon is some of the US congressmen, particularly Democrats, trying to rake up the Kashmir issue. These people are ill-informed, but the reason they are doing this is because of the funding that they are getting from pro-Islamic institutions. Please remember, this is not just a Pakistan issue. There are many other countries who are funding this thing, and we have highlighted that in some of our videos at PGurus. Sorry to blow my own trumpet here, but the point I'm trying to make is, in this small 1 minute bite, I can't tell you all the details, but there are many other countries also involved in this, and so the outraging that is happening on part of Bernie Sanders, it's actually going to hurt his candidacy, in my opinion. in fact, it might even hurt the entire Democratic Party if they don't correct course right away.
Absolutely, and perhaps that's why it's time for Indians, as you're saying, across the world, to speak out and speak up, because we can truly, at the end of the day, change the narrative of some of these vested foreign publications, Gulrez Sheikh, and also foreign politicians, if we truly corner them for pandering and playing.
Will turn to their own lawmakers and governments and
We're running out of time. Yes, Sree Iyer, quick word.
Well, I think the Minister of External Affairs is doing a great job. I second the gentleman's view. The important thing that India needs to do is it also needs to reach out to its diaspora, such as what I am doing, like United States and United Kingdom. There's a sizable number of Indian Americans who are all, aghast by what is going on in this, and they need to start writing to their senators and congressmen, saying that, look, what has happened in Kashmir it has finally restored some balance to people who came over 70 plus years ago and they had no voting rights. This was the biggest travesty of justice. So when you write something like that, how can somebody say that this is against the interests of anyone?
1 point.
Yes, quickly.
Hop on the next flight and leave. Sree Iyer, now we have to look at fundamentals here. The fundamental is in the context of FATF, and which is what we're having this conversation under, it's literally doing tariq pe tariq. Now Pakistan is a known terror state. Its biggest private sector bank has been indicted by the US, which is Habib Bank, for terror financing. Pakistan has failed in 32 of 40 tests that were put by the FATF. And yet we are still fiddling. Now, I know the Chinese are aiding and abetting that fiddling, sir, but eventually that last straw will break.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one other interesting fact. The $6 billion IMF loan that they got, they'll have to pay $5.9 billion back towards another thing that they did with regards to, I think, copper. So essentially, they got $100 million.
That was a scandal. That was a scandal that has been rocking Pakistan, and one of the ministers there, or former ministers there, was involved in it. This is reference to context. So finish your thought.
Yes. So how do you make sure that you don't have a refugee crisis on your hand when all this starts breaking down? And there is a free-for-all situation. So India needs to really start thinking about that and try to see how it can bring in the moderate elements in the Prague bureaucracy as well as in the military to say, listen, you need to contain this thing. See, one outlandish thought I have is all the loans are owed by Pakistan. But if Pakistan were to split into 4 countries, then none of those countries can say that, well, we didn't sign these deals. It was done by the Pakistan unit. So you go and ask them. I mean, this is a tricky situation. Whenever you've had these splits, there used to be always a home country that would accept all the commitments. But in this case,
but there have been loan waivers in the past. They've happened in Yugoslavia and other places that have been balkanized. And ammunition costs a lot of money and costs foreign exchange which the Pakistanis don't have. Sree, your quick last point, so then I need to call it a break.
Well, if supposing there is another strike on India and India has to retaliate, I would do it slightly differently. I would try and reclaim back parts of the POK land, because that gives a new thrust in India's determination to saying this was ours and we are taking it back and we are not giving it back. So something like that should start happening, because India needs to keep moving forward and making sure that
I agree with you. And yes, you reverse Kargil it, and of course that there are consequences to all of these, and these are serious business, and I don't want to be sitting here doing warmongering, but let's not kid ourselves. There's a UNGA, and you can mark our words here, 27th of September, and in the next month or two, you can well imagine that the Pakistanis, so desperate, want to come up with something. They're spinning the narrative to say this will be a false flag operation so that they can claim deniability later. You know that the New York Times and the Washington Post and the BBC and whatnots and Al Jazeera will be willing to lend them a kind ear with all sorts of jokes that these publications publish and call it journalism. And in that, we have to brace ourselves. But one thing we have to be damn clear on, that if Pakistan now does something, the cost to bear will be so high that it will change the history of
as monuments.
Okay, the reason,
Which was not done.
the reason, Sree Iyer, that this is, and I again repeat, for a collective conscience, because we haven't looked at this at all in our country, that we are looking now at the prospect that within our lifetimes, Pakistan ceases to exist as a viable nation state. And the blot that was created by Jinnah to satisfy his personal ego will finally vanish. And once again, we will have to recreate and rebuild the real history of this region and this Pakistani concoction. So we can't forget where Islamabad stands today, what actually stood there before. How do we bring that back into our mind space and to the global mind space?
Step by step, the first step would be try to make sure that the Kashmir joins mainstream India in a very smooth and seamless way. Because this is one of those things that could actually help India grow out of its GDP numbers from 5 to a significantly higher number, because you can have more trade going there. So that becomes a template for the remaining Pakistan to say, hey, these guys, abolish 370, normalize the stuff, and then those people are also prosperous now. And then the next step would be to get back POK, and perhaps after that, encourage Pakistan to become smaller countries like Sindh and Punjab, and encourage each of these regions to go back to their mother tongue. There's one other problem that Pakistan is suffering from right now. They forced Urdu down the throats of Punjabis, Sindhis, Pashtuns, Baloch, everybody. So here is a problem. Mother tongue is only spoken at home, but the kids don't get to read and write unless they take some special lessons. So this kind of wiping out of history in a forced manner is not correct. So what India could do is give these countries autonomy, but just address their defense concerns, have some sort of
we have to.
agreement.
The thing is, that might be the formula. There's an idea. It might not be the final formula, but unless we start having these conversations here and now, when the time comes, we won't be ready for them. The time nobody thought in 1947, and the same thing Urdu was imposed on East Pakistan, where hardly 4 or 5% people spoke Urdu because they were Bengalis. And we never thought the time would come when East Pakistan would be a new country, and look, hey presto, it happened. So unless we have this conversation, we won't be ready. I'm taking it one step forward. Sree Iyer, eventually when you need a mental identity and historical reintegration plan. That's what I'm nudging all of you. Fine, intelligent people here in this country is that a mental identity and historical reintegration plan. How do we now start thinking about it and charting it out?
Well, you already see a lot of expat Pakistanis settled in Canada, United States, United Kingdom. They're all starting to talk about their history. And the reason this happens is actually from their children. See, when my children grew up in US and their classmates, they knew so much of their religion. And our children, you have to really take an effort to tell them what Hinduism is about, what Sanatana Dharma is, and so on and so forth. So when these Pakistani American or Pakistani Canadian children go to school, suddenly they have a problem because they're not taught. I mean, even their parents don't know.
Their history begins in 1947. Correct.
Prior. Exactly. So they need to. So this has become now a curiosity point. So a lot of the younger generation are saying, I really want to know what my history is. And lo and behold, you have the oldest surviving civilization in Sanatana Dharma, and that existed for who knows, 8,000 years or even more.
Yeah, Dharma Rajika.
So that is, so that I think probably might be one direction from where all this is going to start happening. I'm very clear that, once this thing gets split, probably the Pak Army, Air Force has to be disbanded. And then,
let me
India
go.
will have to give
Now we are
some sort
working
of
on an
umbrella
assumption,
and so on.
and it's now a reasonable assumption that this generation will see the failure of the Pakistani state. Now we are reaching there almost, and that requires, eventually it can't be a, yes, there might be a role of military, but the end of it, we are talking about mental identity and historical reintegration, that a falseness that was created has to be purged from the system. Shahzai, open Sadhvi Jai Bharti again. Sree Iyer, now we have to start looking at Pakistan not even in the name Pakistan, which was artificially created. It was something that came into existence. Nothing called Pakistan ever existed in the mind-space historical textbook anywhere by anyone. Right? Islamabad was created. I just pointed out Ban Fakiran and Dharma Rajika and Taxila are the nearest neighbors of historical value in Islamabad. So now what do we start referring this entire area as, and the peoples as? We can't call them Pakistan and Pakistanis in the near future.
Well, I would start out by making it somewhat easier for everyone. That is to call them like Republic of Sindh, Republic of Punjab, Republic of Balochistan, Republic of Pashtun, and so on and so forth. And if everybody is in agreement, you can start thinking of an Akhand Bharat. But I don't think that is really needed, because my take on all this is these countries will have to be administering themselves.
Yeah.
All India can do is provide them the guidance, give them the university education kind of things where they can help them, just like the way India is going to integrate Kashmir fully into the rest of the country. I think that template will have to be replicated with a few changes.
Okay, just hold your thought.
Make sure that that works.
Whether we like it or not, fortunately or unfortunately, the misdeeds of Jinnah 70 years ago will have to be cleared up by the only country and peoples in this neighborhood that's capable of clearing them up. Sree Iyer, we want to come in. Take your quick 30 seconds, sir. Then I want to quickly need to wrap up this debate. Sree Iyer.
Yeah. So you just take it one step at a time. For instance, establish Sindh language institutes in India and start giving them online education, because somebody who's struggling to find their language, let's help them by establishing online courses, giving them degrees, and this doesn't hurt in anything. Even today you can do that, and the same goes for Punjabi also. And if people want to learn Pakhtun, so be it. Baloch languages, dialects. I think India can easily scale to add all these infrastructural facilities so that people can learn in their own language. We are not imposing anything on them. Just saying, first learn what you are, and then we'll talk about
I'm
what
desperately
happened
out of time. I'm desperately
Thank you.